Good morning and welcome to a new day on Focus on Liberia. My name is Priscilla Nyenator, and this morning I am here with Miss Massa Emilia Washington. Miss Massa Emilia Washington is a Liberian journalist, a woman and human rights activist with nearly 30 years of experience. Ms. Washington covered the Liberian War extensively, often the lone local female reporting from rebel-held territories. We all know how scary that was. Ms. Washington was actively involved in early advocacy to end the war and women's participation and rights to be heard during peace negotiations to end the Liberian War. As a journalist, she covered and represented the women of Liberia at several peace conferences in the West African sub-region, including the Accra Peace Conference 1 and 2 in Accra, Ghana, the Akosomo Clarification Conference in Akosomo, Ghana, and the Abuja Conferences 1 and 2. Ms. Washington is a former commissioner of the Liberian Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the TRC, where she oversaw important subcommittees including the diaspora, gender, the legislature, the media, and was a member of the final report writing committee. Ms. Washington was the only commissioner recruited from the diaspora and is credited for motivating fellow TRC commissioners to engage the diaspora communities in its processes. In its process, she was subsequently selected by her colleagues to head the TRC Diaspora Project. The TRC Diaspora Committee, with its partners, will engage Liberians in the numerous overseas communities, including Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, USA, Canada, United Kingdom, and the Netherlands. Today, the TRC of Liberia is recognized as the first TRC worldwide to involve the diaspora in its process and is respected for introducing a new dynamic to transitional justice for how diaspora communities can be included in local truth-telling processes. The TRC Women's Project, headed by Ms. Washington, is also noted for being the first worldwide where over 48% of women engaged the TRC. The TRC's legislative project headed by Ms. Washington was also groundbreaking. Ms. Washington was educated at the St. Teresa's Convent High School on Rana Street, Monrovia, where she spent her kindergarten. She's a convent baby, and most of her school years. Her last 2 years of senior high was spent at the Liberia Assembly of God Mission School, AGM, in Monrovia, Liberia. Ms. Washington later attended the French Institute studying of bilingual journalists before matriculating to the University of Liberia and obtaining a BA in mass communication with emphasis in print journalism. Ms. Washington was initially trained in broadcast journalism by a collaboration of Liberian Broadcasting System, LBS, and the Voice of America, VOA. She obtained a Master of Social Work in Clinical Mental Health from Temple University, Philadelphia, United States of America, School of Social Administration. Her early career before the Liberian War, Ms. Washington worked at the Ministry of Information as senior reporter while at the same time providing volunteer services to the Liberian National Red Cross Society as information officer. She later joined the all-male dominated Inquirer newspaper during the war as reporter, rising to the rank of news editor. Ooh. While at the Inquirer, Ms. Washington established a knack for the news and was soon making front-page headlines and writing editorials and feature stories. Miss Washington created a column in a newspaper dedicated to highlighting women's experiences during the war. Sounds so like I was following her without knowing. It was owing to her outstanding work, Miss Washington has been recognized nationally and internationally. She was a recipient of several awards for her work and services to Liberia, including Inquirer Reporter of the Year Award 1994, Press Union of Liberia Reporter of the Year Award 1995, the Liberian Community in Philadelphia Leadership Appreciation Award USA, International Women's Leadership Award 2008 for Women's Campaign International, based in the USA, and a Liberian Woman of Courage Award from the United States Department of State in the category of the International Women of Courage Award, USMSA in Liberia 2008. Miss Washington is also one of several peace and women rights activists featured in the United Nations publication on Liberian women titled Women, the Right to be Seen, Heard, and Counted. For current work, she is also a clinical social worker and a mental health specialist. Ms. Washington currently lives and works in Philadelphia as coordinator and therapist for a non-for-profit substance abuse and mental health organization. She previously served as program supervisor, then program director of the 3ES Health Centers, other intellectual disability and mental health programs. Most recently, in 2022, this year, Ms. Washington founded the Liberian Women Advocacy to End Violence in Liberia, supported by a steering committee of cross-section of Liberian women to address ongoing violence and gross violations of human rights ongoing in Liberia. Oh, this amazing Miss Massa Emilia Washington is here today with us to talk about the Liberian media as framers of the elections discourse. Welcome and thank you so much, Sis Massa. I call her Sis Massa, so that's how I'm going to be referring to her throughout this broadcast. But it is it's such an honor to have Sis Massa with us talking about this all important topic. So thank you, Sis Massa, and welcome.
Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you so much. I must say that the profile was a little long. I tend to be a bit humble with these kinds of things, but thank you anyway. Sometimes it's good for people to understand your background, and then,
Yep,
then then they can understand why you where you are. So thank you so
that's
much,
what I read it.
and I do look forward to a worthwhile discussion with, of course, the feminist in chief.
Oh, you going to make the president, we are supporters get on me, because that's the title that they want to give to him freely without him meriting it. Anyway, I don't want to go into that politics, but it's an honor. Thank you. I'm flattered by that other title you want to give me. We each just doing our best. And as I was reading your profile, I'm like, oh my God, there are little similarities in areas that are, path that you're a trailblazer. And some of us, I see myself working in some of the paths that I was able to read about you. So it's such an honor to be in your presence and to be connected to you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, Sis Massa, this is election season, and as media people, especially you, people like to loosely use the term veteran, so I can be careful. I can be stingy with using that. So I don't know whether to apply that to you, because I see you still actively contributing to the media landscape, and one of the ways is with this kind of conversation.
I mean, that
What
is
do
a
you
term.
think?
I don't really
Huh?
ascribe. I don't really ascribe to that veteran term. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
thank you.
yeah, it's a bit pushing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's overused.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's a cliche now.
Hmm. But anyway, so what do you think? What can you share? What do you think should be the media role now in framing the discourse, this election discourse? How should the media be going about doing that?
Mhm. Okay, so first, thank God we have some time because this is a topic that is extremely important, I'm sure, to everybody, but it's particularly important to me as a media person. The media is my first career, and then it's also my passion because I chose the media because of my love for the media. So, first, what I want to establish is before we even get to what we think or what are the topics or issues that the media should be focusing on now or highlighting going towards 2023 elections, let's first establish that the media and politics are opposing sides of the same coin. So the reason I want to establish that is because a lot of people they don't understand the role of the media in politics, and they don't understand where they intersect. And so people think that journalists, oh, you're political, you should not be political. The media is politics because the media covers politics, it lives in politics, it dabbles in politics. So I would like to first establish that the media and politics are opposing sides of the same coin. For example, just for some of our people, let me break it down. When you for example, when you pick a coin, any coin, say maybe the nickel, what the Liberian people call 5 cents, you will see it's one coin, but then on one side of it, you will see the burst of a man. People will say the head. And then on the other side, you might see the Capitol building of the United States of America. On other coins, you might see like grain or other things. But even though they have two different sides, but they are just one coin. So that's the media and politics. Okay, so Greek philosopher Aristotle also reminded us that man is a political animal, meaning that we live politics, we breathe politics. So even though it may be at different levels, but we are political animals. And so here you have the media that is driven by men. When I say men, and also women, men and women. So you have the media that's driven by men and women who are naturally by birth political, and then you have them uh, dealing with issues like elections, which is of course all encompassing political. So the media is the main means of communication. It is the major medium through which we inform, we educate, we entertain, and to a large extent influence decisions, especially politically. So the media plays a pivotal role in society since it is the primary source of information for the public. This role comes with the power to influence, including politics as well. And the various forms of media are all conduits of this powerful means of influence. Okay? So now we know we have all these different types of media. You have mainstream media, which I like to refer to as the newspapers, the magazines, televisions, cable news, and then, of course, of late, you have the unorthodox media, the internet, Facebook, Twitter, Link, YouTube, podcasts, talk shows, blogs, such as your show. So the media may engage in some or all of mainstream and unconventional forms of media during elections. But bottom line at the end of the day is it is engaging in what media experts will term political communication. So I'm making the point. When we get there, you understand why I'm making the point, because we want to see how well the Liberian media is engaging in this political communication. Is it benefiting the people of Liberia? Is the media being indirectly manipulated by politicians to push their platform without even realizing it? So, because the issues driving campaigns of candidates and their platforms are political, the media then must be proactive in shaping the narrative of the kinds of everyday political issues that have far-reaching implications on the lives of people. So, generally, coming to your question now to answer your question. So, generally, the way the media shape elections narratives are numerous. There's so many ways, but I will just give you just maybe three or so examples. For example, the media choosing to cover who or what is important in shaping that person's campaign or narrative. Say, for example, during the active election season like now and moving forward to 2023, the media can decide, you know what, we're not going to push the issue of dual citizenship for whatever reason. The media can decide that it can be a conscious decision or it can just be one of those decisions that people didn't pay attention to. And if the media is not pushing the issue of dual citizenship, guess what? The ordinary Liberian voter is not going to pick it up. One, they will not understand it. They will not have access to the communication concerning dual citizenship. And of course, it's going to be trivialized. They're not going to think it's important because it has not been in the media, or the media has not pushed it consistently the way it should. So the media choosing who to cover or what to cover, when to cover what, is a very key element in how the media can shape elections narrative. So, for example, you may have the media, the way it chooses to cover or not to cover an individual or political platforms can have a huge effect on voters' perception. Like, for example, I will give you one example. I always like to give example. When I was reporting in the early days of the war, when they had the first Council of State, 5-man Council of State, where all the rebel leaders, they sent their representative, Asa Musa on the Council of State, people came to town and stuff, and Kromani had the people on the Council of State and all of that. At that time, I was a senior reporter of the Inquirer, and I was assigned to the Capitol building. My beat was, because I was trying to finish my courses at LU, so my beat was that whole Capitol Hill enclave. It made it easier for me. So it was the Capitol building, the Executive Mansion, University of Liberia, all the other places, because I could just walk there. And me, as a senior journalist who came from a background of human rights, who was going to peace conferences, advocating for the rights of civil society, advocating for women's rights. When I was covering the Capitol building, where now you have all rebel, all rebel entities, like you had the NPFL, the IMPFL of Mr. Prince Johnson, you had Ulimbo K, Ulimbo J, LPC, they had the representatives at the Capitol building who were now legislators and senators. So when I was covering the Capitol building, at a point in time, from the beginning, when they came to town and they joined the mainstream government, it was a good thing because we were hoping that it would help to end the war gradually. But then when they came to town, we saw that they continued the divisive rhetorics. They were still inciting some of the fighting forces. They still had control over certain territorial confines of Liberia. And even though they were in Monrovia, benefiting from taxpayers, because the taxpayers were paying them, they were getting paid and all of that. But then when they went to deliberate issues that I and other journalists were covering at the Capitol building, when they went to deliberate issues, we saw that it was all on party lines, all on rebel faction lines and stuff. So someone like me, what I did, I decided that I was going to have a news blackout for a period on all rebel groups. So with me, I used to go to the Capitol building, and I told my editors at the time, my editor was Sam Slevin, Gabriel Williams, and Philip Wisse. So, they were all strong guys. But, I can be headstrong too. So I went to them and told them, say, look, the way these guys are handling this issue of ending the war and to unite Liberia is a shame, because they're all still fighting for the warring factions, even though they're here in Monrovia at the Capitol building. By this time, they should be pushing the One Liberia agenda, but they're still fighting, to gain more attraction for the warring faction. And I said, I have a news blackout on any of them. I am not going to interview any of them. I'm not going to interview Prince Johnson. None of them. I'm not going to interview any of them. But however, because of the fairness of the public's right to know, and because of the fairness of the newsroom, if they bring the press release here, we can treat it as a press release. We can carry the story, but then note that it's a press release. I said, but me, Massa, and Media Washington, I am not going to go to the Capitol building, to go to the offices to see what is making news, to interview them. I'm not going to do it. And my male colleagues, they look at me and they needed me because, I was one of the biggest, I was one of the star reporters. So they needed me to look at me and say, okay, Massa, you go ahead, do what you want to do. Just make sure that, we get the news. And I remember one day I had gone to, so what I was doing now, I was only covering civil society. The people who were there to represent civil society, the people that Count Control, who representing Grand Crew County, Ishmael Campbell, who were representing Sando County, and those kind of people, I will go, when I go to Capitol building, I will go to the offices, find out, what was going on, interview them, all of that. So one day I went to the Capitol building. This guy is in Minnesota now. He's not in Iman. He was representing Ulimbo K, representing Alhaji Kroma. I'm not going to call his name. So as I was walking through the hallways and the corridors of the Capitol building, somebody called my name and I stopped to speak to the person. And then he heard my name and he came out. He's a crowd boy. He came out and he stood and he said, Massa Washington, we see that you are covering the Capitol building, but you never cover us. You never come to us for interview. Have you interviewed me before? And I turned around to him. I said, listen, I have a news blackout on all your rebel people. I said, I have a news blackout on you because you all want to continue the war. You all want to continue killing our people. You all want to continue looting the resources. I said, so. He said, so what does that mean? I said, nothing about rebel group that I would sit and interview. I said, however, he said, but how can you be a good journalist when you're not going to cover? I said, no. Write your press release and send it. I said, but I'm not going to interview you. I'm not going to interview none of your rebel people. Write your press release and send it. And when your press release comes to me, I will use editorial discretion as to whether it makes news or not. And I just walk away from him. So they all knew that. So that's one of the ways that the press, can change, can shift the narrative of what is going on. Another way that the press can also shift the narrative in elections is that through bias reporting. Bias reporting also influences elections. If the truth is compromised consistently in favor of certain candidates or for certain campaigns, this can serve as incentive to voters for or against. For example, you saw what happened in the United States elections that brought, I hate to say, I don't like to get in the politics, but I kind of figured that one of the reasons why Donald Trump became so popular and was voted in was because the media was biased against him in a lot of ways. They didn't want him, they didn't think he was an appropriate candidate to run whatsoever. And so they bashed him so sadly until he gained a lot of sympathy votes. Even people who you think would naturally no. So at that time, it worked against the intended purpose at that time. It worked against. So it can go either way, either or. And then social as direct line to the social media, rather as exact direct line to the masses. Like social media now has completely revolutionized the way we conduct the affairs of the media, even though mainstream media is still holding on for dear life. But social media now has ran with this thing. Social media has ran with this thing. So what you're doing now is a form of media, it's a form of social media. So social media completely influence to a large extent voters' perception, the candidacy of individuals, the platform of individuals, what people need to be looking at, all of that. And also visual communication, because social media is more visual. And they say a picture says 1,000 words. Like, for example, just 2 weeks ago, talking about ongoing violence in Liberia, there was this skirmish with the soup in the CDC, allegedly. And then this young man was beaten mercilessly. He was stripped, his pants was taken off him and he was stripped naked. And that's a horror. I mean, when I look at it, it was horrifying. And everybody is seeing this. So this is why the Liberian social media public is so outraged over what happened with this young man just 2 weeks ago. So all of these visual images leave powerful impression on the psyche of would-be voters, more than even written text, because most of our people in Liberia, they can't read, they don't have access to a newspaper. Newspaper don't really make money from their sales because one person buy a newspaper in the office and then that newspaper, everybody read it, and then it takes a journey throughout the entire building. If you're lucky, you get your paper back at the end of the day. So social media now is the thing. And I would like to disclose that some of the information I'm giving you here was done through research from the University of Oregon School of Journalism and Communication, just to be professional. So the way the media shift the elections result, I've just given you some of the way. But then the thing is, where is the Liberian media now with shifting how the Liberian voters will vote, how they see the candidates? While it is true that there are some issues concerning the candidates themselves and their platforms that may impact the way voters will see them. But by and large, it is the media that is the medium through which those issues get across.
I agree.
And,
So I was
and
going to ask you. So thank you so much. And it is that was such the information was helpful, and I trust that this time is going to be meaningful. Uh, um, so I was going to ask you now, what are the issues? What are the issues that the media should be paying attention to, and not just running behind every, I won't say it nicely, so I don't want to say Tom, Dick, and Harry. So, what are the issues that the media should be focusing on instead of, giving audience to everyone? Like seriously, like most of that is happening around all the time. If it's not this other person and this one fighting, for instance, I'm just going to say like, oh, Yeke Koluba and this one on, the whole thing is like a circus. Like it's just giving audience for this whole circus. People are just performing. It's like, so what are the issues that should be driving media practitioners so that they
okay,
can exercise like something that you did? If you're going to be talking about this, I'm not going to cover you. I'm going to be looking for issues like these. What are the issues that you think they should be looking at?
okay. So when you have a country like Liberia that has so many needs, coming from a protracted civil war that completely destroyed, basically decimated the country in every facet of the word decimation. The needs are numerous and the issues are numerous. But
Mm-hmm.
I selected just a few that I think are more urgent and more of a priority than others. For me, the number one issue that the Liberian media need to be focusing and pushing right now is the issue of security, because it concerns everybody and it affects everybody. Maybe for now, you think you are a little bit far detached from the um, the effect of the poor security that's happening on the ground in terms of all these gross violations of human rights that are taking place. Maybe you have not had a family member, maybe in the last 5 years, who has been affected directly by the violence that's going on. Maybe you have not had a family member who has been raped, excuse me, the language, or sodomized, or who has been mobbed, beaten.
That's what is happening. There's no other way to refer to it.
I know. Or maybe, because what I noticed with Liberians is that we tend to tune, to tune out
Yeah.
if the violence does not reach our doorstep. This is why our war was so horrible, because when it started, oh, it came for the Crown people, then it came for the Mandingo people, then it came for the Gio people, and then, oh, the 1980 coup was only about the Conga people. And then, but you see how the list of all the ethnic groups kept adding on that hit list, and we still have not graduated from that mindset. So even though some people may feel that, well, nobody has murdered my brother or killed my sister or raped my aunt or whatsoever. Oh, it's happened to other people. We can watch this on social media. We've seen this in the newspaper. So psychologically, you may think that you feel far detached from it because biologically you have not been, affected by that. But just know, anything that happens wrongly that's not checked, sooner or later you're going to get your share. It's going to visit your doorstep. When they started
Yeah.
killing, it seemed like it was ordinary poor Liberians. They were finding bodies in impoverished communities, West Point, New Kutan, or up in the interior, in some little remote village somewhere, some dirt road, and they were sodomizing poor people who children, are forced to go on the streets to sell water, to sell, grumpy market and stuff for their family to survive. So those were the most vulnerable. It was easy for predators to target them. But you see what happened the other day. Didn't they kill the sons of two former presidents? So you see how
Yeah.
big it's getting. So it's now nobody is immune from this violence that's taking place in Liberia. It's a
Exactly.
vicious circle that's going around. Sooner or later, it's going to visit everybody, or personally. And so Liberians need to be serious about addressing collectively the crimes that are taking place in Liberia. So the media as that conveyor of information, the watchdog of society, needs to reshift the narrative behind how we are reporting on all of these crimes that are taking place in Liberia and the dire security situation of the country. It's because also nothing is happening. So, it's just crazy how every single day you wake up and something horrible has happened every time you think you've seen the worst, but you have not actually seen the worst. So the media needs to put a lot of time, a lot of editorializing, a lot of energy into reporting this issue of the crimes that are taking place in Liberia and how these crimes that are taking place are affecting and impacting our community. And so this needs to be one of the major issues that they need to be, I'm sorry, but they need to be shoving it down the throats of candidates, people who want to run for the presidency, or even the current president who wants to remain in power. Okay, what are you doing about this? It's happening
What
under your
you
watch.
doing?
It's happening under your watch. So we may not
Yeah.
have forensic evidence, that you are sanctioning any of this. It's all debatable, But hey, what are you doing about this? Are you doing enough? Why is it keeps happening under your watch? How much resources are you giving to institutions that are fighting crimes? The police is always crying about lack of resources and lack of, of funding. So what is the budgetary allotment of allocation for these institutions like the police and law enforcement, the Department of Justice, and these other human rights institutions and law enforcement institutions that are assisting the government to deal with crime? What's the budget? Do you have anything in the budget for some of these community-based, or teams that are assisting law enforcement to keep the community safe? These are the issues that the media needs to be expounding upon.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, another issue that the media needs to
Before
seriously.
before you move to that, if I may, I agree with you, and I know we're talking about that the other time when we're like recent budget that was passed. How much is in it? Because in the past we heard, oh, the Ministry of Gender, for instance, does not have this much budget to be able to even collect data in areas that are inaccessible. They don't even, because the partners that were helping them in those areas, most of them, according to report, folded out and they're gone. So how much is the abuse rate, the crime rate in those kind of areas? Or right, even in Monrovia, the justice ministry, the last time we had a director for the LGBV unit, and it was the same thing about, oh, we are constrained when it comes to budget. And I continue to say we all understand that there are competing priorities, but when it comes to the issue of life and death, security and the rate of crime that you're talking about, is an issue of life and death. So how can we adjust ourselves if we say we're serious? Recently few years ago, we made state of emergency declaration. The recent budget, is there any reflection in it to show that, yeah, we declared an issue a state of emergency, so this is how much we are allocating for to tackle that issue. So I agree with you when you say, what are the resources that are being channeled in these areas, and we need to be asking the current and the people who want to come, what are the intentions? How are they thinking about these issues? How are they questioning the resources that are being made available now? Have there been adjustment made? So I just wanted to throw that. And there was another point that I wanted to make, but maybe I need to grab a pen and paper because I'll forget. But yeah, if you wanted to move on to the next the
Right.
next next
Yeah,
issue.
absolutely. So, Priscilla, so your points are just so all in line with what I was saying, and then the reality of what is happening. And another issue that the media needs to be pushing is the issue of acute poverty. Acute poverty.
Okay,
Liberia, yeah,
okay. So,
Liberia.
so I remember. Excuse me, Sis Massa. So I remember what I wanted to say was when you mentioned we tend to tune out. So when you don't pay attention to an issue and then it become, it's we say, if your neighbor's house is on fire and you don't do anything, your house could be the next one. And then
Yeah,
sometimes
absolutely.
people say like this for the Christians, they say like this, that the serpent that was in Genesis became a dragon in Revelation. Recently,
Yeah,
when I see the report about they killing, they raping the children and the sodomizing boys, little boys, and now even men. I shared recently, and I was like, yeah, when they were raping women, we tune out, like nothing was done about it. So they
yeah,
felt that they could rape women and nothing was done about it. Now they have progressed. To them, are progress, even though we're digressing. But they're going to children, they're going to babies, and for some time they will do that. They cross over to little boys. So maybe when they start raping men, because most of them are the policy makers, they are the determinant of where our
yeah,
resources go, then maybe
yeah,
that's when we'll start having the level of outrage that we keep saying that we need to have. When they rape women and children, then we say, where are the women grew? Wait,
yeah.
why should it be only the women grew when this is supposed to be
And
a
then
human right
why should the women,
issue?
why should those girls dress the way they dress?
This should be
The
a human being
minister.
issue. They should involve all of us. Why are we saying it's only the women issue? And now they're crossing over to, like, the two persons you mentioned, two sons of a former president. Now they
Yeah,
start raping men, grown men. Then we'll see. Maybe that's when we'll start doing something about it. So I just wanted to add that when you mentioned about these things were happening and we weren't paying attention, and now things are getting worse.
yeah. So another issue that is serious in the community that the journalists, Liberian journalists, need to be paying attention to is the issue of acute poverty. Liberians are grappling with poverty, and I mean, I'm not going to preach to you. You know what it is. So rather than just reporting on what's happening with people in poverty, like for example, somebody goes and steal because he has to feed his kids, his 5 kids, and then he becomes a rogue or a robber, and he's beaten, and then the media report on our story. In the newsroom we had those stories that were he says, he said, she said.
Hmm.
It doesn't go beyond the mere reporting of what has happened. So okay, so
Yeah.
you report this thing, but then you don't go beyond what is occasioning all of these robberies and stuff. What is happening?
Exactly.
Do people just want to be quote unquote rogues? Do they just want to steal? Why are people stealing food? For example, why are people stealing food? Why will grown men and grown women who have their homes, who have children, going out in the community and stealing food? What is happening? What is occasioning these kinds of behavior? What are the environment with which they live? What we know, Liberians, there's poverty across the board, but we know that some communities are poorer than other communities. Why is that so? What's happening? How are the wealth of the nation being distributed? Which community benefits more? Which group of people benefit more? Which county benefits more? I mean, we know some of the people who benefit more. For example, our legislators. We know, they get the lion's share of the mega resources that should actually go to the poor communities to take care of children and stuff like that. But these are the kinds of questions that the media need to be asking. So when
Asking.
the media need to question more and question in depth. Question more. Why? How? Why? So, okay, so if this happen, will this happen? Why will it happen? We need to be more inquisitive. A good media is a media that is inquisitive. Be curious, ask more. Why is it happening? So why is a grown father who actually has his home, whether it's a zinc shop whatsoever, but he has his home, he has his children, he has his wife, but then he goes on the street and snatch somebody's iPhone? Why is he doing that? Does he want an iPhone? Is he snatching it because he wants an iPhone? He just wants to have the phone, or is he doing it because maybe he wants to sell that phone to buy food for his children to eat? Maybe he has a child that is extremely sick. He doesn't even have money to take this child to the hospital. He's desperate. Maybe. I'm just saying maybe. Because I do not believe that everybody who commits certain kind of crimes are just bad people. I think sometimes people are pushed into making bad, poor decisions out of desperation. So when society overall creates the environment for these kinds of crimes that are actually that can be solved by good government policies and stuff, when society drops the ball, and then the little man down there gets the butt of everything, then we call them criminals. We put up our noses at them. We snub them because they come from Newtown, they come from Slipway, they come from Gerda Street. Of course, now we name them Zocos too. We name them Zocos. You know, so the media then, as the watchdog of society doesn't only mean that, oh, you're just watching government officials who got access to the resources, or who should be managing the resources. You're actually watching the entire society. How is society being run? How is it being managed? What's happening with what I consider the outgroup? And in social work, the outgroups are people like, women who people like to marginalize, children, or poor communities, the uneducated. So how is the media reporting affecting or will improve the lives of the outgroups? For example, how the way we report on abuse will stop domestic abuse against women. How? So the media needs to be inquisitive. We need to question more. And this is how the media can drive that narrative. But what I see the Liberian media, again, people try their best within the environment with which they work. And don't forget, the media is also an offspring of the environment. So media people are literally extremely very poor. Extremely very poor. This is why in some instances we have the issue of cattle, your media personnel. We're still dealing with the issue of cattle. Media people extremely poor because guess what? They come from those communities as well. They don't come from the sky. So poverty also affects the media, but notwithstanding, when you take oath for certain profession, like if you're a policeman and take oath at the police academy during your training, you take oath to be sincere, to be honest. You cannot stand on the street and start extorting money from taxi drivers and parking the taxi because they didn't give you $5 or $10. Every time I ran into a police situation like that when I was in Liberia and I'm driving, I used to tell them, say, okay, you know what? I got all the time in the world. I would just sit in my car and just wait, but you're not getting a penny from me. And then after a while, oh my, you party, oh my, hey, how? And they say, oh my, go, yeah, go. Because, I refuse to bribe them. So even if you're going to delay me a few minutes, I will be delayed, but I refuse to bribe you. So when you take off, like journalists, we have a code of ethics that we're supposed to follow. You cannot hide behind how poor you are or what's happening in your own world and violate or not implement your code. We hold you to that. Same as we hold the current government now. When Ellen Johnson said the government were there were a lot of lapses and people were complaining, they were crying. They couldn't wait for her second term to be over. But then this current government said, y'all give us this chance, even though we younger people say we don't have experience, but we got good intention. We come from the bottom of the ladder. We want to do something about what is happening in Liberia. So y'all give us a chance, we will do better. Okay, so guess what? We don't want any excuses now. We will hold you responsible now for those things that you promised that you will do, even though you may not have created a lot of the issues. You made them there, but guess what? You took on this job because you say you can do it. You say you can make it better. So we hold you to those comments and promises. So the media must perform ethically at all times, and the media must rise above some of the issues in this, in the communities, and actually do what it's supposed to do in terms of educating, informing, and positively influencing policymakers, and also shifting positively the discourse or the narrative for elections. whether next year, whether by elections or what have you. Now, another issue that I think the media needs to be
Whether by elections or what have you.
another issue the media needs to be vigilant about is the fair application of the rule of law. How our law is being
Another
you
issue
know
that media needs to be vigilant about is
I'm experiencing echo and feedback. Priscilla, is there? Are you hearing it? You so the media needs to be deconstructive in the way it reports on issues like the application of the law. Um, our constitution gives that all of us are equal under the law, and how is this playing out? Do we all have equal access to the law? Is the law, is the application of the law fair across the board to people who got connections or don't have connections? The poor, they don't have money, or you have money. People should not be discriminated uh, against because they got money or because they're poor. The law is the law, and the law must apply to everybody across the board. So the media can assist the public in making sound electoral decisions at the polls by the way it pushes these issues, by the way it deconstructs these issues, and by also telling people, you see, people will understand you better if you can break down the benefits of some of these things. For example, if the media is skillful enough and energetic enough and passionate enough to be able to break it down to ordinary Liberians, to explain to them people platform and policy. For example, to say, this person says when he gets there, he's going to prioritize uh, the fair application of the law, meaning that even you poor, but you will still have access to the law. Your case cannot be thrown out of court, or it cannot be delayed or adjudication because you're poor. So if ordinary people can understand that certain decisions that they make at the polls in terms of voting will benefit them in the long run, I am sure they will not be out of voters. They will vote properly. Out of voters mean people just vote any old way most of the time, like the herd mentality. When the herd sheep or the herd cow go one side, everybody the other cattle go that way. Uh, People will vote for people on the basis that this person is handsome, or the person is really educated, they can speak well, or I just like the person. The person, they don't care. They can just say anything without thinking, oh, they love the kind of, bravado. So the media has a responsibility to assist the public understand people's candidates' platforms and what they will be doing when they get there.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sis Massa. Those are really salient points. Thank you so much. I wanted to, when you were talking about explaining, I don't know, am I sounding? I'm hearing like I'm sounding some way. Is it clear? Because I
Yeah,
went in, I went out, and I can't. Okay, so going beyond reporting the he say and she say, when you mentioned that point, I thought of a few stories that I saw before or I heard about where, for instance, mothers were selling babies. There was a time, and I think it's because of the same poverty issue, but it wasn't reported like that. Like you're talking about, hey, we need to dig deeper, we need to analyze issues. But he said it was just a report about mothers selling their babies for 40 Liberian dollars, and then we tend to be critical of those mothers, or we report those kind of issues um in a accusatory tone, that kind of, and it's not to excuse the mother's behavior, but it kind of leaves the burden, it leaves out investigating the main issue. What is the reason? Why would a mother in her right mind sell a baby for 40 Liberian dollars? And this was what was reported according to news. And then there was another something that someone sent to me before about I think she's being abused, but then she's not leaving. Oh, so they were taking the abuser to prison also, and this spouse was like she didn't want them to take her spouse, her abuser to prison. And the newspaper was saying to me, you're advocating for this, but this is why the women are saying. I said we shouldn't report. We don't report. We report this, and she's saying they should not send her abuser to prison. And I was like, I don't have time to even go into teaching with you, because I was thinking, if we can go into the issues, if we say let's take time to go into the issues, you don't want to make time to go into the issues. What is the underlying factor? You got to look at the economic disadvantage situation of women and men. If your society has created a situation where women rely on men, or a spouse rely on her male spouse to be the breadwinner, to be the one who earning the income, of course she's going to say, "Don't take him to prison. How am I going to eat?" That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that he should kill her, but are we not going to think about how we can create a society where a spouse, a male spouse, does not is not free to inflict harm on his female spouse? That's the society we're talking about, the one where the man doesn't feel he have the right to do that. And we go to the root by teaching him she's equal, or by creating equal opportunities, so that a woman is not disadvantaged to depend on a man at all costs, whether he beats her or not. So when you were talking about analyzing issue instead of doing he said or she said, I thought of those two instances. And you also mentioned that poverty is, which is true also. Journalists, are not earning more, so people tend to be to not be to be biased, or to not be objective, or to not be fair, or it affect their professionalism. But I think another factor, Sis Massa, I want to mention is the lack of training. And I think it's not because they're raising a lot of training opportunities. What I used to see before I came over here, because I trained, I worked as a trainer with the Liberian Media Center for almost 6 years before I came over here, was that some of our colleagues do not want to be trained. They feel that they have grown to a certain level, and in any profession, any career, you need to update yourself. In a medical fields like that, in any serious field, there are always new, discourse happening in science, in whatever field you are. I think in those who are in accounting or economics, they will say that new principles are being developed. And so there is always update for you to refresh yourself, for you to develop yourself. There are always room. There are things that were acceptable that are no longer acceptable in certain profession. But when it comes to our own field, you see people think that as long as they became a quote unquote household name because they were on the radio once upon a time. So there are some big journalists, and they don't want to say it for training. They don't want to go, they don't want to develop themselves. So they keep, operating with some system that are outdated, or that are not professional anymore. So I wanted to throw that in.
Yeah. Mhm. Absolutely. So we're discussing at least three key issues that should be that the media should be paying attention to in terms of shifting the narrative of the 20. You see, the
So
Liberian
before we
media.
go to the third point, can we take a break so that I can read some comments and see
Yeah,
and just see what people are saying?
mhm. Yeah,
You want
sure.
us to do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, all right. So let's see some of the comments I see. Can you please put the comments up? Otherwise, I'm going to just read what is on Facebook. Um, M- Mikey say, Swa Senior say, watching you from Southern Greenfield County. Um, God says, my powerful sisters, thank you, God. Mikey say, Hashim Famula say, Auntie Massa, this president don't care about the citizens. Okay, so I don't see any questions. I see a few comments. I don't see any questions. So if you want to move on to the third points that you're going to raise, the issues that we're supposed to be looking at as media, and then we say there are factors that could be affecting the media, the practitioners from operating as expected, as some of us expect, and I think that would be, professionally, would be maybe the lack of training and poverty, but there are some other issues. So that we can still try to aim for within our little means. So what is the other issue?
Okay, so we discussed the security situation. We're looking at poverty, and then we also briefly introduced the issue of the fair application of the rule of law. So these are the three issues we're discussing here. But let me just say, let me come back to how I think the Liberian media right now is not shifting the narrative. I think the narrative of, you know, issues going into the 2023 elections and how it's been played out by politicians and their platform is complete. I think that the media is subconsciously being manipulated to indirectly promote the platforms of politicians. The media is not in control of, of how the narrative goes. Is because several reasons. One of the reasons I think is that the media, some media people, when we were trained, and this was in the 80s when I was being trained as a journalist, we were told that media practitioners do not take sides in politics. They do not dabble into politics. And so that's not really true, because here in the United States, when we came here, in all our other media training that we did to buttress the training that we got from home, is completely different. You have media institutions like the Wall Street Journal or the New York Post, Washington Times, and all of that, Newsweek, endorsing candidates. Now, that may not be something that I want to see mainstream Liberian media go into, but we need to understand that there is no way we as media practitioners, especially those on the grounds who are practicing actively, there is no way you can avoid going into tough, heated political issues. All you have to do, follow them intensely, do your homework so that you can be able to perform as an informed, educated media personnel who have done your homework. So, but basically, what the media is doing right now, from what I see, and I stand to be corrected, is that the media is still ascribing to that basic standard of journalism. You just reporting. They're just reporting. So you just report on I think it's 5 W's and 1 H. It's the who, what, where, when, why, and then most sometimes how. So media personnel in this 21st century, media personnel in Liberia are still being stuck in this mundane interpretation of what the basic elements of news reporting is supposed to be. So they're just sticking to that, what I call elementary. That is something we learned in 19 years ago in the 80s in journalism school in Liberia at the Mass Comm department at the University of Liberia. The codes of ethics of journalism, the principles of journalism, the elements of journalism, they've all evolved long time past that 20, 25 years ago. They all evolved. So the media must be energetic enough. Like I said, it must be curious enough, and the media must have an insatiable taste for knowledge. It's like people. I have a brother who is a computer scientist. All day they're taking training. It's like every year, every couple of months they're doing training because they have to sharpen their skills and whatnot. So media people cannot be lazy. Those of us who call ourselves media, people, we cannot be lazy. We must educate ourselves all the time as to all these new dynamics in the media, because the media landscape has changed. Now you have social media with an onslaught of different mediums and avenues of disseminating the news to the Liberian people. We must be prepared every time to match the changing form of the media. So the media in Liberia at this time, they're just sticking to, you report, a police officer the other day from Sano County has threatened that he's going to commit suicide, blah, 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 and that's it. But then what's next? Okay? How is this going to impact? Because this is the police chief in Sano County. So how is this going to impact the issue of security for Sano County? How many police officers do we have there? How is it going to affect the local people? Even this police chief who is threatening suicide. What is his status now? What is his mental status? What is going on with him economically? Okay, what's about the alleged gross human rights violation that he said he suffered at the hands of this judge, this county or solicitor or judge? So these are all things it all boils down to. But the Liberian media needs to take control of the narrative, because right now our media is indirectly just playing second fiddle to politicians, indirectly supporting it, supporting them or even realizing that. Like the other day, I think it was earlier this year, there was this, I think one of these guys in the Liberian Senate or legislature went out and was dishing out stacks and stacks of money. And you see ordinary people, including some women, they got all these stacks of Liberian notes, stack. And the media only reported it one time and showed that picture, and that was it. That story is done and over with. There's no follow-up. There's no follow-up. There's no critical analysis. There is no even, look, let me tell you something. The way the media is effective in shifting the narrative is that the media should be practicing more of developmental journalism, patriotic journalism, and human rights journalism. Especially, look, when you come from a country like Liberia that went through 14, almost 16 years of a vicious civil war, where the gross violations of human rights was so epic, it was so extreme that when you tell some of these stories, or when you hear some of these stories, you want to question whether these things really exist, but it did happen. So when you come from a background like that, where the entire country was destroyed, every system broken down, you have to focus on developmental journalism, the way you report issues, the way you educate people as to why it's important for infrastructure development, why it's important for proper budgetary, allocation. You want to also push the issue of human rights journalism and reporting, and you want to push the issue of patriotic reporting, because right now all Liberians need to be patriotic, but some of us don't, including some people who find themselves in public office. They're only looking at how they will scam the whole system, scam all the countrymen, and then get to the legislature, get to the Senate, or be voted into office as president or minister or so, to go and steal. Most of them are just looking to see how do we get there to elevate their status. That's what it's about. So the Liberian media can be encouraging people and educating them why to vote for a particular candidate, why you must vote. So patriotic journalism is going to be key in shifting how the Liberian voter. Human rights journalism, like now, the TRC recommendations is still stock in neutral. I say stock in neutral because it's not going down slope. It's not rising, but it's just there. The reason is because much as You will hear a lot of Liberians talk about they want to end impunity, they want justice for what has happened to them. But we as a people, okay, led by the media, have not really come to that point where we need to be patriotic enough in human rights in scope to say, look, this issue with what happened to Liberians, the rape of the massive rape of people, the destruction of our people is a human rights issue. So we have to be pushing for the implementation of the TRC recommendations because, it's going to assess the human rights, question of the country. People just think the TRC think, oh, you know what? It's just another commission that did its work. It's done and over with. People want to discuss it whenever it suits their purpose. Like, for example, if somebody does something outrageous, then you will hear people yell, maybe just for 24 hours. We need to bring war crimes code. We need to bring war crimes code. But after that, it dies down until something outrageous happens again. And let me tell you, the media need to encourage and teach the Liberian people how to be depoliticized. The ordinary Liberian men, they're just too deeply political, that they don't understand these political issues. People will be discussing bread and butter issue. People are discussing the budget, or basically the lack of proper appropriation for education for people, children, or the lack of, sufficient budgetary appropriation for health services, for social services. But then Liberians, they're not going to, you would not see them engage in these kind of issues. But guess what? If one of these politicians are having a rally tomorrow, the whole city will shut down. The entire city will shut down. It's all politics. As you walk in the street, the entire boss will be calling commissioner. Then you're picking and we want you to come and engage us. They want you to go sit and talk frivolous politics. But nobody is training them to reorientate their mind to discuss the economy, the issue that keeping them in poverty, to discuss the issue of security, the issue of impunity, justice. They're raping your children all around you. They're raping your wives right under your noses. They're sodomizing you, and the whole day you go sit to a tire shop and just talk about, Thomas Falade and all these political people. By the time any of those guys call for the rally, the whole city shuts down. But guess what? When you call for a demonstration to implement the TRC recommendations, you'll be lucky if you get 200 people to show up. If you call for a demonstration against the rape that is taking place against their mothers and their daughters and their babies, you will be very lucky if you get 100 people to show up. If you call for a demonstration against the poor healthcare system or educational system where the children are still being disenfranchised, they're still not getting the kind of quality education that they need to be able to make proper decisions tomorrow, they're not going to come up. They will not show up. But guess what? If United Party is having its launching tomorrow, they're going to come there, they're going to shut that city down. ANC having their launching, they're going to shut the city down. LP having their launching, they're going to shut the city down. So, the media has a very important role to play in this whole Liberian dispensation. And I think a lot of the times we drop the ball. And because you look at the different talk shows are being factioned, against what politicians are doing, what they are doing. You understand? So some politician will get up tomorrow and make some kind of statement looking for attention, and then it's breaking news. Your Facebook will get flooded, your messenger, your email, all social media will get flooded with this politician saying something that does not translate to how the lives of ordinary Liberians improve.
Exactly.
So we have to help. This is why they say all Liberians are out of voter. For most part, our people are out of voters. Yes, but it keeps happening because we as media people, we are not helping them.
No, we're not educating them. We're not enlightening them.
We're not helping them. And then two, people want to bring people on their talk show most of the time. I don't want to accuse my colleagues or so, but I will not even go there. But the thing is, it's just politics with these guys all the time.
I fight with Dennis all the time for that. Too much airtime to these people. Like, what are the issues? Today you're taking up with them.
Yeah, today. So imagine someone would get up tomorrow. One of them would get up and throw some outrageous
Free
something
airtime.
over, and then all of a sudden, every single talk show will be featuring that person, will be featuring that conversation.
Today, if
That's
it's
that.
not
So
ANC, tomorrow is Yeke Koliba issue
right,
today. Yeah,
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
what are we
So
doing?
so the politicians, the drama kings and queens in high office, and the charlatans, they are actually detecting the narrative that the media is carrying. It
That's
should
what
be
I
the other
wanted
way
us to
around.
talk about this topic today.
The media should be the one determining, no. These are the topic and issues that
That we're
affect
supposed
our
to be
people.
talking about.
These
Yep.
are the topic and issues we are going to be looking at. I'm sorry, we're not going to talk about your schoolhouse that you're building after stealing the wealth from everybody and making everybody poor and feeling making yourself rich. Then you come on my show to talk about your university. We're not talking about your university yet. Please, sir, the issue here is how are you addressing the issue of crimes
Oh,
in
yeah.
Liberia,
Oh, how do you intend to?
you know.
Or
So
why
the,
don't
the media,
you? Sorry.
yeah, the media got work to do. Come 2023, it's not too late. We still have like a year, a couple of months, but we have to redouble our efforts. We have to work very hard. The media has to really, really, really be serious and patriotic, be developmental, in its psychology, to be able to push forth the kinds of topics that will actually benefit the ordinary, because the ordinary man, they're not, they don't know what we're doing. They're waiting to hear from
And
us.
partly
So they're
it
not,
depends on the questions we're going to be asking these people.
yeah. So the ordinary man is not going to come to us to say Priscilla, Dennis, Anthony, Massa, or or Cole or anybody. This is the topic I think you should be speaking about. The poor people got no clue. We have so much for the fact that we are the people who provide the
Set the
primary.
agenda.
It's just a lot of power that we have that we're not playing right. We're not playing it right to the extent where the media is even being manipulated by charlatans and politicians. Whole day you will see some unscrupulous person. Everybody know the person are crook, but then you will wake up one morning. I mean, they just be all over the media. Just doing nonsense, talking nonsense, and then the main issues are being ignored or
The main
completely
issues.
forgotten.
The
you know
main issues.
and
Yeah.
and, and this social media is a blessing, but it's also a curse, because don't forget, now you have people who, while it is true that it's sort of difficult to say who can be a blogger, who can have a talk show, who can, because anybody can sit in a car, do their talk show, anybody can wake up, sit in the living room, do the talk show. You can really regulate that. But the thing is, you're hoping that those Liberian journalists, those who are really, really trained, who know the ethics, the principles, and the elements of what good and sound journalism is, will actually be the one to step up and occupy that space. Because when we neglect to occupy that space in the benefit of the greater good, then guess what? All these other bloggers, all these other quote unquote social media influencers will come and occupy that space because you've left it vacant. And this is what is happening with Liberia. I mean, you look at the social media, people just sometimes, you get a notification, you open it, that somebody they're cussing. Cussing. I don't watch some of the things, they're just cussing, just acting outrageous all over the place. But then when you look at the following, even though we know some of them fix the number, but when you look at the following, you see this person got a 200 or listeners in just 1 hour, or in just 30 minutes, 200 listeners, and then some of them actually have 150 comments, people commenting and stuff, on nonsense, because the people who are quote unquote trained journalists are missing the issues and dropping the ball and creating this vacuum that social media influencers are called influencers because they're not trained journalists, but they do have a voice and they do have a platform that people like to come on. So they're social media influencers. So these influencers who, for whatever reason, they are engaged in social media, are actually filling that void that that mainstream trained media personnel have created or have ignored. You know,
Okay. Says Massa, I mean, you couldn't have explained it better. Like the issue, and I were kept saying, Sis Massa, can you please come and talk to us? Because I get so frustrated when these things are sent to your inbox and you're like, what should I do with this? Why you keep promoting people and giving audience to people when there are issues that are there? But I wanted to quickly first say something about I too learned journalism like that. We should be objective and not take side. And then I also learned, but first personally, the United States, I don't like to when I looking at best practices around the world, I don't like to limit it to the United States. They're not really ideal when it comes to a lot of things. As example, right? So the issue of Wall Street journals and Washington Post and taking side, uh, um, there are also independent news outlets or institutions or establishment agencies in the United States that best that carry out best practices that we should look at, like the ProPublica, like the NPR. So yes, we know that they practice those kind of things about institutions taking sides because hey, even if it's not something that is clearly articulated, we know capitalism play a huge role in this country. So there always be corporations behind some of these institutions and establishments. But then the other thing is that their context is different. Ours is they have strong institutions. Yeah, then they have. I just got a notification that Fox News. Yeah, they have armed men right now at the Phoenix FBI office right now. So you don't want to do that in places like our country where institutions are not really solid. They're not really, establishments are not really. They are more just individuals. So you don't want to start. You don't want to promote a culture where newspapers start taking side or Inquirer newspaper take a side, and then you go have people going burn down those little media houses are just trying their best. So we're already struggling with professionalism. So there are best practices that we can copy from around the world. Besides following some things in America, I like to not pay attention to because yeah, no, they say one thing and they preach one thing and they do another thing. Um, but all the points that you point out, I agree with. So I just wanted to say, hopefully the right people are listening, and we'll continue to have these kind of conversations, so that people can know that it's important. The media role is key if we are going to have a change, have a new day. I'm trying to find a comment. Somebody said I saw Dennis somewhere asked, and I think you already answered that. But maybe he wrote the question before you answer that. So if you want to zero in on this again, if somebody missed that, how do we bring those main issues? So these great issues that you talk about, how do we bring up these main issues apart from what the newsmakers are doing? I don't know what I want to call the newsmakers, please. But anyway, that's you because I don't really see much of news these people are making unless we just give it in free platforms all the time. But then this question is how do we bring out these issues? And I think you already mentioned that. So if you just want to go back to it, like we all say, by asking the right questions, the questions that they will go into these issues that are concerned to the ordinary people. But take a shot at that again, sis Master.
Um, right. So let me thank Dennis for that question. Anya's son. Uh, how do we shift that? Several ways. One, we can redirect the conversation. Like for example, if you are discussing, say, maybe the economy at this time, where is the Liberian economy at this time? What is happening? Is facing a recession. What's going on? And you have someone who is supposed to be well versed in that area. But maybe this person is a politician, or maybe this person is not a politician, but an expert, maybe who has some political intentions, or has some political networking going on. And so you're asking this question because you're hoping that the answers will generate the kind of conversation that you can expand upon, that will
Yeah.
benefit the greater good. And this person is talking about, well, this is why if this party gets there, we'll do the. Just redirect them. Period. You just redirect the person. And then also, the media can, instead of waiting for the conversation to break, the media can actually make the conversation, meaning that the media can generate its own topic conversation through interviews and stuff. Maybe the media can get up and say, okay, for example, this issue of crime and security that is going on. Let's do extensive research. Let's do a couple of interviews into the different communities, especially the communities that are being hard hit. Instead of waiting, the media can say, instead of waiting for somebody to speak, because what I noticed with the Liberian media is that most of the time the front page stories always has to do with what some big shot has said. Most of the time, either what some big shot has said, or what has gone wrong in government, or something like that. So instead of waiting for the news to break to you the way people want it to break, no, you break the news. The topics are already there. The issues are already there. You introduce them. You can come up with a front page story based upon your research and homework. For example, you can come out and say, in the next 2 years, this is what is going to be happening with Liberia economically if we continue to experience economic recession and decline. And you can work on that story. But the Liberian media is too much of a he say, they say, she say, and I think it's because
echo chambers of
yeah,
these people who run here around here and say they are
yeah,
they are aspirants.
echo chamber
We're
type
just
of journalism,
echoing what they're saying
right? And I think it's
instead
because
of setting their agenda.
psychologically, by training and also by the experience, we were told that big names make news.
Yeah.
So this is why people think that anybody, and big names simply mean people in government who have status, people who are doing things in the community, who are well known, who have status and stuff, legislators and senators and ministers, and all these people are considered big names. So if any of them say something, whether it makes sense or not, whether it's complete nonsense or not, whether it has the propensity to reflect negatively on people or not, it automatically make news. Oh, we got our headline story. Oh, we got our lead story. No, with me, when I was actively
That's just
practicing,
lazy. To me,
yeah,
that's just lazy.
when I was actively practicing, I sat down and look at all the issues that I thought made news. And most of the time, sometimes my lead stories, which were really pretty much good because I won awards, as a journalist. But they didn't come from these big names, make news people.
No.
Charlatans. I don't really roll the red carpet for charlatans. I don't. I told you I had news blackout on our Capitol building on Warring Factions representative. I was reporting only on civil society. And if there was any, at that time when I was news editor, if there was any Warring Faction member who got, Warring Faction that got front page story, is because there was something that happened that the Liberian people needed to know. And sometimes it was just for the purpose of documentation. For example, if someone came out and said something outrageous in a press conference and they sent the press release and I heard about it, I reported it because I wanted it documented so that in the future, posterity will understand what role these people play in the destruction of their own country and in the destruction of the future of the young people of the country. So, but it was not meant to just report on just what they say. Oh, Prince Johnson says something. Oh, Prince Johnson, quote unquote, is big news. How is he big news? How did he become a big news? So I don't just give people the red carpet treatment so in a lot of ways, journalistically, some of our people, our journalists, are still stuck in that mindset of big names make news, whether these big news people or whatever, however way we see them. So we need to, like I said, journalism has grown, it's shifted over the years. It's not it has been it has been the evolving profession, and we need, the rest of us need to evolve along with the journalism profession.
All right, sis Massa. Thank you, sis Massa. So, oh man, we've run out of time already. It's almost 1 hour, 30 minutes. So we're going to close on this. We're going to end this conversation. Hopefully, we can have you back to, because it's we are pushing election season. We're already not in it, and we need more of this kind of conversation to enlighten us. Because the questions are good. Like one of them, we don't have the time. I'm just going to we've already addressed one of Dennis' questions, so I'm going to skip this one, go to someone else. But I think it's a valid question. He says, and again, I think that was already addressed, but maybe someone missed it. He was asking, for instance, Yeke Koluba is trying to have a press conference about forming protection force. Should the media ignore that or cover it? And I think Sis Massa was talking about what is the reason when she used, for example, this man stole this. Why did he steal it? So if Yeke Koluba is talking about having his own protection force, why? And that is the security issues that we were talking about when she mentioned about CDC people allegedly my hand or someone recently stripping naked. So if you cannot rely on, and we saw that police officers were standing by and that happened. So is that why people are trying to form their own person? Because if you can't rely on state security, so those are the kind of conversations I think we need to be looking at. And recently another journalist was on from the white lady who was on Marion Com, and she said something like that. Instead of looking at individuals' actions, can we be looking at policies and policy makers? Like we've done too much of reporting on these individuals, but then what are the reasons that these things are happening? The environment that being created, who are creating this environment, who are responsible that these kind of things, these kind of environments exist for these kind of actions, for the individuals to be taking these kind of actions. So I think that should address the Yakoba something instead of chasing him back and forth with security something. But quickly, I wanted to say, I wanted to read Gabe Tucker statement. He says, sadly, in our media journalism arena, sensationalism with no substance seems to be the order of the day. The important issues concerning the health and security of state are highly given any time. So that is a statement or comment from Gabe Tucker, sadly in our media arena. Sensationalism with no substance seems to be the order of the day. The important issues concerning health and security of state are highly given time. With this, I want us to end this broadcast and to say thank you to you so much, Sis Massa, and all of our audience. Thank you, and those that will watch later. Just leave your comment and feedback, and hopefully next Sunday, Sis Massa agrees to join us. Sis Massa, do you want to give your parting comment?
This opportunity to engage Liberians via this platform on the roles, responsibility, and what the media needs to be looking at in terms of shifting the narrative for the coming elections 2023. This is a very good topic. We can expand on it some more at another time, but I'm appreciative to FOL for this opportunity, and let's just keep doing what we do. Hopefully, people will get the message.
Thank you. All right, folks. Thank you, and talk to you next Sunday or the Sunday after next. Goodbye.
We are Liberian. Lord, you said in your word,
I should forget, yeah, the former things. You said, behold, you are about to do a new thing. You said you will do something new in my life. All the eyes of them that see it will marvel. But my enemies to shame, Lord. Please give me a new day. Give me a new day. Give me a new day. I don't want yesterday. All I want is a new day. Yesterday broke my heart.